Hey there YouTube, Doc's Motorcycle Service. Rawr, 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 rawr. Welcome back to the garage. Right quick, check out the Facebook page. That's all I got to say about that. YouTube, we're welcoming you back to part 2 of the rear end of the bike video. If you did not see part 1, there ought to be a little link popping up here to that. In that video, we got the caliper rebuilt. We got the caliper mounting bracket rebuilt. Stop! Need to clarify something. We did not put any type of lubricant in here on the upper and lower pin bolts. And the reason I said then was that I wasn't sure because the service manual didn't say anything about that. So I called a couple of trusted friends and asked them about it, and they said yes, in fact, they do put a lubricant in there. But what they do is they put one of two things. They either put an anti-seize, which is like it's like a grease, but it's not quite a grease. It's a lubricant. Or use a Moly base brake caliper lube. And apparently the Moly is a higher level of lubricant that will do the job. So what I did was I went ahead and pulled this back apart and went inside here where those two upper and lower pins float, if you remember what we talked about in the video, and re-grease those. So I wanted to clarify that. And now, as we mentioned before, we're raking all these parts together that we showed you in the first part of the video. And as we're raking them together, we're putting assemblies together like the caliper and the caliper mounting bracket, setting that to the side. Now we're going to start working on putting the wheel together and getting the sprocket, the final drive sprocket on one side and the brake rotor on the other side. Let's go ahead and get started with that. Here's our drive sprocket. Not really too torn up about it. The only thing I can tell you is that going back, you want to go in here and make sure this area is good and clean. You don't want any debris or garbly gook in there. If you can feel it, if you can feel a bump, come back with a wire brush or some fine grit sandpaper and clean that up. But where this meets up to the hub, you want it on there perfectly straight. And it looks yucky, but we're going to change that here in just a minute. I'll show you what we're going to do. This is our J&P Cycles chrome sprocket cover insert, if you will. And all it's really going to do is lay over the top of the drive sprocket just like that. We went ahead and purchased a Colony sprocket bolt washer kit, and this is going to replace the old yucky bolts that were on there. Just in case, so I won't forget, or in case I do forget later in the video, when you are putting these on the outside of this right here, follow your specification in your service manual, and don't over tighten them. The worst thing that you want to do is to put too much torque on one side, because that's going to pull that side down and kink it. We have our hex bolts. We have some chrome washers to go on the outside, and for redundancy we're going to use lock washers or split washers on the inside of the sprocket, along with some Loctite to keep those on there. Those are very important. Last thing that we're adding is going to be a new chrome brake caliper rotor. This one's from Drag Specialties. It's the 11.5 polished mirror stainless steel rotor. So it's going to look real pretty. So we're going to get these unboxed. We're going to get our tire up here on the table, and we're going to get started putting this on. Tech tip: when you're buying stuff like this, always make sure that you take care of the packaging. Don't go ripping it apart. I use some needle nose pliers here to pull the staples out, just in case it's not right. Most of the time when you buy stuff from people, either online or in person, they'll let you return it if it's not right, but they're not going to bring it. They're not going to let you return it to them if the packaging is tore up. So just take that extra second to take the time to unpackage it properly. That way, if there is a problem, you can always return it. We're probably going to have several tech tips in a row here because I just want to always try to help you do better at what you're doing. So you're sitting here looking at yourself and you're saying, okay, well, gosh, he's got all this stuff lined up, ready to do this project right now. It's a habit for me, sort of like being a pool player. You're not always looking at your next shot, you're looking at your next 2 or 3 shots. You want to come off this ball and put some English on it so it ends up where you can get a good, better shot on the next shot. Well, I'm a planner like that, and I talked about this in the beginning of this series, and I hadn't really had a chance to say it much anymore, but line your projects up. Have what you want to do this week, what you want to do in 2 weeks, and what you want to do in 3 weeks, and have all that stuff coming in at the same time. That way, if everything comes in for project A and something's wrong, you can send it back. But maybe the parts came in for project B, and you can go ahead and do that project. And it don't, you know, what you guys see out here, you see it going in order, but what you don't realize is I run into problems getting things, and I'll do project B, shoot it, come back, do project A, shoot it, and then put them in order. So keep that in mind. Always be thinking about what you need. Don't wait till the last minute. If you're wanting to do it over the weekend, don't wait till Friday morning to order it. We got these things unpackaged. Let's look at that, and I'm going to offer you another tech tip. Real quick, if you hear a humming in the background, that's the heater running. Where I live at, it's 42 degrees today, and that's the high. That's too old for me to be out in the garage. So I got to keep the heater running while we're doing that. Hopefully it won't interfere. Our 5 bolts here for our brake rotor. And like I said, we're using chrome bolts on the outside. I've said in the past that I'm a chromosexual, but I'm not going to pay for chrome on the inside where nobody can see it. So these are packed up. Got 5 of everything. We're ready to go there. Here's our brake rotor. Woo, look at there. I can see Doc in that. That thing right there is purty. Oh my goodness, ain't it purty. All right, so there you go. We got this thing down. It's ready to go. And here's another little tech tip. If you'll notice right here, this is your minimum thickness is 205. What that tells you is that as you are performing the inspections on your disc brake rotor, just like you need to on your monthly or quarterly inspections on your bike, checking the thickness of your brake pads, this thing's going to wear down too. But with this number on the outside, you can use a dial caliper and measure this on the bike to make sure that you are not below the minimum thickness. And I think it's pretty cool that they put these on the outside so you can always see them and know what they are. Here is our outside cover, another pretty chrome piece. And I always test fit everything before I start putting it together. What you didn't see off camera was me laying this down on the old brake rotor to make sure that it matched up. I'm not so concerned about these decorative holes as I am the bolt pattern for the hub and the overall outside diameter. We're going to bring in our piece here and lay it down to make sure that it matches. And you saw it slide in, but uh-oh, look, the holes don't match. Don't go crazy. Tech tip. Don't go crazy. Don't have a come apart. Pick it up, rotate it again, rotate it again. Oh, you see we're getting closer. Rotate it again. Maybe one more time. Oh, maybe 2 more times. Oh, maybe 3 more times. Where's it going to go? YouTube, when's it going to line up? There it is. Now she lines up. So if it doesn't fit the first time, play with it a little bit. And if it don't fit at all, take it back. So this is the side here that has the narrow lip on it. A clue to make sure that you have the right side, you can take the drive sprocket and put it on there. And now the part of the hub is flush with the inside of the drive sprocket. When we put this piece over here on it, this lays down nice and neat and there's nothing protruding. Alright, we're going to take this off and flip the wheel and look at it from the other side. We have our valve stem over here. We go to put this on, there's a pretty substantial lip there now. When you go to put this on and line it up, you got gaps in here. It's not fitting flush. So that's a clue in case you forgot which side this went on. As we mentioned before, this is nice and clean. We spray painted it. It looks great. We're going to put this back on the right side. We're going to get our chrome plate lined up, get it nice and centered. Let's get these set up and dropped in. Well, I tell you what, this is going to look sexy when it's done. Put in our chrome on the outside, our chrome washer on the outside. Man, that's going to look good. Now what we got to do now is, following the specifications in our service manual, we need to tighten these to 65 to 70 foot-pounds of torque. And if you watch the previous video, you can tell this is going to be fun. Because what we're going to have to do is take a lock nut and a washer, put on the back of all 5 of them, get them up pretty close to tight, go in behind it, put some Loctite on the threads, and then get them nice and snug. And what we're going to do then is, once we get them snug, using a pattern, because we don't want to torque this thing, then we'll come back with a torque wrench. But while we're using the torque wrench, we're going to have to hold a wrench on the back. Do not, listen to me, tech tip, do not put these on with a pneumatic air wrench, because unless you use one every day, you're going to screw it up. You're going to over tighten one of them. It's going to cause a kink and you're going to throw $45 out the window. So I'm going to get started on this. Stick around. Try our best to manipulate this onto the bottom of the bolt. And you might have to slide the bolt back out a little bit. Just going to run that one down. Finger tight for now. We'll rotate it. We're going to get the other ones done. Okay, there we go. Now, what I've done is I've left a little thread here on the bolt. And the reason I'm going to do that is so I can turn this wheel up on its side, go in from this direction under here, and apply the Loctite to the threads on the back side that the nut's going to tighten up on. Then we're going to get that torque down. So stick around, YouTube. All right, got them in. They look good on this side. Say hey, Linda.
Hi.
Had to wait for Linda to get home so she could help me hold this thing. It's hard to manipulate a tire, a wrench, and a torque wrench, YouTube. All right, so now we're going to flip it over and get the other side done. All right, we got her flipped over. We got our new rotor on here. We got our little button bolts in here. We have our lock washers and our nuts tightened up on the back side. So we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to go with blue Loctite. I don't think I said that a while ago. Little tech tip. On your big stuff, your important stuff, you want to use red Loctite. But remember, red Loctite, once it's set, it requires professional tools to come off. Blue Loctite will come off with hand tools. So you should be able to break blue Loctite off with your hands and maybe a breaker bar. But red Loctite, it's gonna be an air wrench, or it's gonna be a battery operated torque drill to get that stuff off. So we're going to get these tightened up with some blue Loctite on them, and we'll be right back. That one's on there good and tight, looks beautiful. And now, what are we going to do next? Okay, well, there you go. We're going to wrap this one up here, trying to keep them a little shorter. I think what we're going to move into next is getting to the rear end of the bike. We need to put the rubber bump stops in, and we need to get the tag plate holder on there, the tag mount on there, and we need to get the fender tightened up. And then after that, we're going to move into the swing arm. So YouTube, I appreciate you coming by the garage, hanging out with us a little bit, let some of the advertisements play. So 25 seconds of your life. As always, ride safe, handle your business, and save some money. And